Speaking of Happy presents Frankly Speaking. With co-hosts Eli Rigatuso, founder and queer transmasculine two-spirit of the Menominee Nation, and the lovely Avalisa Ellicott, model, public speaker, makeup fanatic, and outspoken transgender advocate. Together, we are Frankly Speaking. Boop, boop, bloop, bloop, bloop. I don't know what that was. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Well, it's been a night.
Yeah.
It's been a day. It's been a bunch of days.
It's been a moment.
It has been a moment. Absolutely. You look fabulous.
Thank you. After a day spent feeling terrible and cramping, I started doing my makeup and I was like, oh no, I'm going to take it all the way there because I can. Simply because I can.
And you did.
And I did.
I also love the she, her.
Yeah, it's aggressive. It's aggressive. Just for the people that were wondering, it is aggressive. I want you to know. I need you to get it right. And I will fight.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, because we were talking earlier today and we were trying to decide because we're here on this Tuesday evening and it's just Avalisa and I for the next hour at least. Because it's been a hot minute since we have really connected here in Frankly Speaking land. And
It really has.
we've had some conversations around moving the time because we didn't feel like we were getting a good audience on Fridays at 6 anymore. As the pandemic started to ease up, people started to go back out again. And that's, hey, we get it. We get it.
Enjoy the night.
Yeah.
Have fun. I
Live
enjoy having fun.
Live your best Friday night life.
Yes. Do it.
Yes, do it. And so we had a discussion about moving to Tuesdays at 9 p.m. because we thought, you know what? I mean, it's a good time to have a frank
Mhm.
conversation. A Tuesday night. We know it's a school night, but you can watch us instead of watching the 9 o'clock news.
Exactly. The kids are asleep.
And we can also touch on and give you the skinny on some of the news if you really need it. But
I'll scroll through Google, tell you about some things.
I'll pull up my LGBTQ plus news and we'll run down the list. It's so funny because we were trying to decide, we're chatting earlier. We're like, well, maybe we should talk about hot topics in the news right now. Avalisa's like, I wish I knew more about this Harry Potter series in order to have a real decent conversation around.
It's just so much trash. Like I've seen whatever the letters are. I'm not even gonna say it. I've seen her,
Yep.
them, him. I have seen them on the internet, on Twitter, saying really terrible things about trans people, specifically trans women. And it's
Yes.
always been like this is what you're doing with your platform. Okay, cool, whatever. I'm going to ignore it. And then there it is again. J.K. Rowling said,
Yeah. J.K. Rowling
okay,
is
cool. And
J-
then again, and then again, and I'm like, you're dedicating your life to attacking trans people.
yeah. I do love though that Jonathan Van Ness slammed her
Oh, I appreciate
because
it.
of her whining. Let's see. Jonathan said from Jonathan from Queer Eyes, shut down Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling vulgar tweet that called trans women's beep. We won't say what that was. Such a horrible, horrible human being she is. So Jonathan says the biggest threats of violence against women has always been cisgender men. Yes, not trans women, unless JK's constant transphobic cherry-picked vitriol convinces you otherwise. But as trans women are assaulted, deprived of work, killed, and raped, JK is safe in her mansion. Mic
Ugh,
drop.
I
Boom.
hate her.
Boom.
Disgusting.
Yeah, but I thought it was funny. You're like, I don't really know enough about that Harry Potter stuff.
I feel like in order to have like a really good, thoughtful conversation about it, I'd want to, have a better history of all of the things that she said and where she's coming from and how she's addressed it because she has multiple times, but I have not cared enough. I have not given enough blanks into what she is doing and just haven't given her any of my time.
Oh, just
Um,
FYI, we're not streaming to LinkedIn today, so you
oh,
can drop the F-bomb and
yes.
feel free to express yourself fully.
The way that I need to, the way that best affirms my language.
Yeah, and in this case, an F-bomb is like the only way to go. I do love this though. I saw this today, and although I don't love that this happened to her, I love that the result was so a gym refused to let a trans woman use the women's locker room, and she won a settlement in California. She
Oh,
sued
ugh.
the gym because she was not allowed to use the women's facilities. She won a settlement from the fitness center. Let's see. Christine Wood had been a member of Crunch Fitness for 9 years when in 2016 she informed employees she was transitioning and even provided legal proof of her name and gender change. Wood told the gym that as a result of her transition, she would be using women's facilities from now on, but the employees would not let her. Brought all of her paperwork in. So I'm
Which is already a step too much. We shouldn't have to do that.
right, right.
But cool legality, have your back just in case something happens. So here are all of these legal documents. Take that money,
Right, and
collect that coin.
the other thing that people do not understand about that is that it's like these are very personal things for us, right?
Right.
You have to bring in all of that and to share all of that, and, like, the fact that she couldn't transition and be respected in a gym that she's been going to for 9 years, that they couldn't
Yeah.
see her as a loyal customer and provide her with some dignity and respect is just disgusting.
But that's the thing. That's the thing that they withhold from us is dignity and respect. They say, I don't understand you, so you don't deserve my dignity and respect. You don't deserve to be seen as a human as you should because you're a human.
Yep, yep. Yeah, it's not rocket science, people.
It really isn't. Just treat
We
people.
don't need triple PhDs for this, but I guess
No,
people
no, you need a PhD in trans people to understand whether people can use the restroom or not,
yeah,
to understand whether or not you should speak up when you see someone trans using the restroom. You need a PhD for that, apparently.
apparently. Apparently. Oh, yes. So then our conversation kind of shifted. We thought we would talk about misgendering adventures.
The terrible, terrible misadventures of
Yes.
misgendering.
Yes, misadventures. Exactly. The misadventures of misgendering. It's interesting though, because it doesn't ever really seem to change. And like, I just don't, I mean, anymore, I'm just like, it doesn't hit me the same way that it normally does, and especially when somebody catches themselves and then they get, like, hyper emotional about it.
Why are we making this about you, Linda? Um, you offended me. I said, it's okay. Here we are 15 minutes later, and you are crying on my shoulder. And now I'm dealing with my discomfort, I'm dealing with your pain, I'm dealing with my pain, when I really just wanna move away from the situation. Just walk away from the situation.
Yeah. Yep. I did say to someone recently though, I said, "This is an awful lot of emotion coming from you in that you did this to me."
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering what's really behind all of that. Like, what's really behind all of that that you are feeling what you're feeling? And it's not about me. It's not. It's not about me at all. But it kind of rolls us into where we decided to land in conversation this evening. And that was we decided to land on biases, right?
Mhm.
And implicit biases, especially. And we're taking it from the approach of telling one on ourselves, so to speak, right? So
Yes.
we didn't wanna, like, sit and just name a bunch of biases in regard to us as trans people and, "You people need to pull your heads out of your collective butts and start being respectful." No, it wasn't even about that. It was more of a, like, we were disclosing to one another some ways in which we uh, had biases revealed to us over time, right?
And
And
that's the thing, it's the process of having them revealed to you and seeing it for yourself and making that conscious decision when something unconscious happens, making the conscious decision of, "Oh, this isn't okay. I should probably work on doing better," instead of just being like, "I never said anything. I'm the best person in the world. I accept everybody. I'm so forward thinking." No, it's okay. Society has built these biases within you.
yeah,
It's okay that you have them. It's what you do about it afterwards. What's your next step after realizing that you have an implicit bias when it comes to Black men walking down the street?
right.
I know it has happened to me, and it's not necessarily just Black men, it's men who look like they possess the capability to harm me, or men who look like they could possibly possess the intent.
Mm,
Um, And anytime I see them, I get this chill through my spine. And I used to like dip out of the way, like look down, do everything I could for them not to notice me. And some of that is because of transness and me being afraid that they would see me and call me out. A lot of that bias comes from transness and avoiding dangerous situations. And then it became okay, well, how are these people reading my discomfort with them walking down the street? What does that say about me? How am I representing myself when I clutch onto my purse and I go walk around the cars in the middle of traffic so that I don't have to walk past you?
yeah,
Am I not bringing more attention to myself? And so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, be aware, don't assume. Just walk down the street. Nobody's ever, well, in these situations after I realized it, no one has done anything. And so there was no history behind it to say, to solidify this bias as an experience based bias as a trauma response.
yeah,
Um, it was just, what I had heard. You're walking down the street, someone's gonna jump you or something like that. And it created this bias within me. But
mhm,
I've seen these biases played out against me, and so it's like, what am I saying by acting this way, by behaving this way? What can I do to change that? How can I be better?
right, yeah, and it's the awareness, I think back to when I was younger and just the things that I remember my parents saying about being out in public and, places to be careful about and, don't go there alone and a lot of it was around being, involved with, groups of people typically people who were drinking. So there was like, I didn't even start drinking. I never had a drink. Like my first drink wasn't until the summer before my senior year in high school. And, like I just had all these like thoughts of what potentially could go wrong and here's the truth of the matter. Like there's always the thing, especially people who are assigned female at birth will hear this danger when you let down your defenses by drinking, right?
Mhm.
And it's so interesting to me because I do recall two very vivid situations, alcohol related. One was this kid from high school who didn't even like me, like didn't like me at all until we were at a friend's cabin on a lake and everybody's drinking and partying and I decided to go and take a walk on the beach because I'd had enough and this guy followed me out there. And I know that I fought him off and left. Like I was like, this ain't gonna happen to me, right?
Mhm.
But just the fact that I was in that situation, right? And so it was like I was always so hyper vigilant in certain ways. And you talk about this when we do trainings together. You kind of paint a picture for people and you ask cis women to pay attention to how they are responding to what you're saying and you ask cis men to do the same thing and I
That the response to that has been wild. The
yeah,
first time we had a class that had, more talkative and engaged cis men in the audience, that's when I decided, okay, let me throw it to the men and see what they say. And then threw it to the women, and it was like, look at your level of privilege moving through the world.
yeah,
And then it paints this slope, this line that says, you with your privilege don't fear anything, you with your privilege fear these things, and me with my privilege, I fear all of this. And to be able to like see that, like I had no idea. I figured the men were going to be like, oh, it's dark, I'm gonna walk quick, make sure I get to my. No,
so
I'm
many
not
of them are
feeling
like,
anything.
yeah, so many of them are like, what's the big deal?
I'm walking to my car at night in a parking garage that's completely blacked out except for one flickering light, and my car is the only one on the level.
Yeah,
No big deal.
no biggie. I just
Whereas
totaled
me,
my
I'm
car.
like, I'm dead. I am dying
Oh,
tonight here.
there was somebody who said at one point they were like, "I'd be phoning a friend. Hey, can you come get me?"
I remember I was in, I think I was in Philly, maybe. I was in some big city. And I was walking around downtown and a man said something to me across the street and I, responded back to him and immediately got on Facebook Live.
Mm,
And I was like, "Hey everybody, what's up? Look at all my viewers," and like loud as fuck. I was like, "I want you to know that there are people that would witness you doing something." Like the fear that I felt to feel the need to get on the internet so that I could have a witness of something bad happening to me.
yeah,
And you're just walking around whoop doo like, what?
yep,
If only I had the confidence to walk through this world as the same as a cis het white man.
right. Oof, yeah. I mean, that just is so glaring to me. And I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out if there's a difference between cis white straight men and cis white gay men.
Most definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
And I bet there is a difference that they're more aware of the potential danger, the cis gay man.
I
Um,
mean, anytime, anytime a gay man, and I think it kind of stretches across the entire queer community, but anytime someone thinks of danger, they think of Matthew Shepard and they think of the reality of that because it was so highly publicized and
mhm,
it was so visible. And it's like, if it could happen to him, it could happen to me.
yeah,
And there's that reality, that visibility of the example of what could happen. Whereas, how many examples do we see of cis heterosexual white men walking through life as prey?
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. I mean, I'm grateful that the Matthew Shepard story had such a wide reach, and it seems as though the violence perpetrated on gay men is not as like how we keep seeing black trans women, the numbers just keep increasing, 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 increasing. Like, the numbers are astronomical to me this year. I mean, the fact that we
Yeah.
have blown all previous records that we know of since they've started tracking anyway. And even the more people that know about it, it seems like it doesn't bring that number down. It's not changing it. It
Yeah,
only
it just
seems
gets higher and higher, and it's like, what's happening? Because I figured that something like this would kind of drop the numbers down. This visibility, this awareness
yeah.
would drop the numbers down. No, the numbers just keep on ticking up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, you and I were both talking about parents who reach out to us, and one of the first questions they ask are, is my kid going to be happy? Like, is my kid going to be happy? Is my kid going to be safe? And I mean, it's so hard to answer that question knowing the state of society when it comes to people like us. And yeah, like, the biases and stereotypes, the implicit bias, the fact that there's so much happening in the media prior to, the ways in which film, cartoons, I mean, all of those things have perpetuated the problem as well and painted us out to be like, I wish that somebody could unpack that with someone like J.K. Rowling, for example. Like,
Yeah.
how many cartoons did you watch as a kid, and what did those cartoons tell you about people who are transgender, right? Especially trans women. That's the other piece of it that, like, as a trans man, and especially as someone who is still consistently seen as female, um, I feel like I'm not as great. Not anywhere near as great at risk as you. Right? So I understand that in my head, in my mind. I know that there are now, that doesn't discount the fact that I have some fears in certain
Right.
situations, but I do know, like for me, when I hear that a black trans woman has been murdered, I don't worry about myself as much as I worry about you and, my friend Lexi and, Ayana, my granddaughter and, like Amara, like I know all these people, Ashley, and I think about some of these folks who are out there doing big work and advocacy and putting their faces out there all the time, and I worry about them. And so it's not like me thinking, I can't leave my house because somebody's going to kill me. I'm not thinking that all the time. I know when I'm in a situation where I might be at risk,
Mhm.
I'm outed in a crowded emergency room and, things like that. But it's just, I yeah. Anyway, we came up with the idea of talking about biases, and because we were just sharing. So Avalisa shared about one of the biases that she used to have, and understanding and reshaping her relationship to people who are fat and fat phobia, right?
Yeah, I
So
have
share a
had
little bit
such.
about what it was that you shared with me earlier.
Of course, I have had such a strange relationship with fatness. Um, as a child, I had family members that were, I'm not going to try and say obese or overweight or anything like that because it's not anti-obesity. It's anti-fatness, and it's this idea of fatness and everything that comes with it. So I had family members that were fat, and kids at school who were fat, and the message that I received from society within school with kids who were fat, kids that were chubby, was that that was the reason they got picked on. everybody called them fat. Everybody told them that they were unhealthy. I remember one guy in high school saying that one of the fat kids wasn't going to live to graduate because he was so fat.
Mm.
Like all of these negative things, even all the way back to kindergarten. Like you hear it. And the reason you hear it is because kids are hearing it from their parents. And so I know me, and with my personal relationship to fatness, my fat family members did not want to be fat.
Mhm.
They did everything that they could to get rid of that. And so the message that that sent to me is that if you are fat, you should be ashamed of being fat. You should do everything in your power to not be fat because you're unhealthy. That's what television, the news, what I was hearing, my personal bubble, like everything told me that.
Mhm.
And so me myself, I said, first it started off as, fat people need to get healthy. Fat people need to lose weight. Fat people should stop walking around with that confidence because they're fat. And then it became, well, I don't necessarily have any opinion on fat people, which was me pushing it back to the implicit side of it. I don't really necessarily have an issue with fat people. I just don't want to be fat. It's just about me being
Yeah.
fat. And that's what I ran with to feel better about myself.
Mm.
And the fact that I did deal with anti-fatness and I was seeing it and I was living it. And it has taken so long to come to a point. And I think it's within my transition and the education that we do that I have come to a point to where it's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care what you do. If you can walk through this world confident, I don't care. Good for you. You go get that. Fuck it up in these streets. You wear what you want. You shake the way you want. You live your life. If you have the confidence to do it, I will applaud you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I hope that you find the confidence. Um, but it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's not me. It's not my life. I don't care. But I know that I'm still working through my ideas when it comes to anti-fatness because while I can see people of color and have this, you better do it. You go. You fuck it up. Like while I can have that reaction to people of color that are fat when it comes to white people that are fat, my brain still hasn't built the bridge. I'm
Mm.
still more critical when it comes to white people, and I think because I have walked through this world watching white people be hypercritical of me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, just the way that my brain is trying to break it down, and that's just the way that I deal with it. But like it's tough, and understanding that I feel the way that I do and understanding the response that I have to fatness has been what has helped me grow and better myself when it comes to this bias that I know that I have. Knowing that I have the bias and accepting that I have the bias has put me on the path to growing beyond it.
Mm.
Um, but sitting around and pretending like I I don't feel that way about fat people, and then in my mind, every time I see a fat person being like, "They need to lose weight," like, obviously, you haven't dealt with it. You have to address your biases head on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's like I was sharing with you earlier that like, when in the dating world, I was always like not necessarily overtly saying like no fats, right? Like nobody who's fat. Like you hear gay men do that all the time, no fats, no femmes on their profiles and kind of thing.
Mhm.
And, I've had some friends, some gay male friends who have shared, the hurt in that. And I totally get it as well. But prior to my realizing that I had the same thing going on, and this is like so interconnected and intertwined with being born assigned female and then being raised and socialized as female and having all of these stupid standards of beauty and all this other crap. Like I see my path very similar to yours in regard to like noticing the things that I was starting to say to myself. And one of the things that I noticed was that I was like, wow, I literally would have it out there that I wouldn't date people who were overweight. And I was like, "Look in the mirror. You're overweight." Right? Like, to look at myself and say, "Wow, that's gross." And, and I had to come to terms with that. That's what I was saying. And once I did, it was like, wow, there were all of these opportunities that presented themselves in regard to dating people and seeing people and acknowledging who they were and not like not avoiding their body and their body image and how they saw themselves, like being with them and understanding where they were coming from and relating to that. Um, because I myself have dealt with a lot of personal shaming for being a bigger person, and have battled, well, I'll just be honest. I mean, I've battled an eating disorder pretty much my whole life. And I am really, grabbing the bull by the horn, so to speak, right now and working through some of this stuff. Losing my mom last year, uh, I didn't even really think about the impact of, being in a pandemic, a global pandemic, and then losing my mother and then almost dying myself. And what I ended up doing is I became very internalized, but I was home. I was not even walking outside, rarely ever even going outside of my house. And I turned to food. And there were times when I was just literally almost eating my face off almost. And I just one day I was like, "God, am I gonna be that guy that has a massive heart attack on his couch and I'm so big that they have to break the window and pull me out with a crane?" Like, I just had this visual of this happening to me, and it wasn't even about my size as much as it was about, like, needing to stop this obsession to eat and eat and eat and, like, to stuff my feelings down. And so I've been working on that for about the past 6 weeks, been pretty intensively working on that with my therapist and some other things that I'm doing. And, so for me, it's like I'm always trying to look at, like, what am I saying to myself about myself? How am I projecting that out into the world, with things that I'm not even aware of? And then just really listening. What am I saying in my head? What am I
Yeah.
saying in my head?
I had really bad slut shaming issues,
Mm,
even though I was out here in these streets like a full slut back in the days. Like, it was like I could um, separate myself from it because it was me and I was doing it, and I didn't mean it like that, but like I have I have looked at someone who is scantily clad before and been like, "Well, what type of attention does she think she's gonna get with that outfit?"
mm,
And unlearning that
yeah.
has been hard, especially when, again, I really don't want this to turn into uh, a cis white man hate show. But
That
it's
being said,
usually them who you hear saying these things. "Oh, she was asking for it. Look
mm,
at the way she was dressed." I just saw it on a TikTok where a guy was trying to justify that a woman is more likely to be sexually assaulted or sexually harassed if she is dressed more expressive. Like, I don't even know what word to use, but like if she's wearing less clothing than a woman who is wearing more
yeah,
clothing, and she needs to accept that. And I was like, that's
yeah.
fucked.
The word that people love to use is provocatively.
uh
She's dressed provocatively, so somehow, too much cleavage or whatever, and it's this, like, some hidden message in that to certain people, and I'll tell you, I mean, You say you don't want to make this about the cis white het man, but the truth of the matter is it is, because
Yeah.
research over and over and over again has proven that they're the ones who are perpetuating a lot of the sexual assault, rape, and harm caused to folks.
That privilege and entitlement has done terrible things to their community.
Yeah.
Um, and at this point in life, it's like I accept people for who they are. However, when it comes to cis het white men, I'm listening very closely when we meet because I'm going to put you either in this box or this box. I'm either going to get to know you and understand you, or I'm not going to fuck with you.
Yeah.
If you have not evolved past the point that men have been riding 97 down the highway in, if you have not passed that, I'm
Yeah.
not going to subject myself to that because historically, people like you, people with your entitlement, people in your shoes have historically treated people like me bad, whether they mean to or not.
Yeah.
And I'm not signing myself up for the rodeo. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah. Steer clear of the rodeo, sis.
I just feel so bad though, and that's why, because it used to just be, mm-mm, mm-mm, I need you to prove to me that you are better, better.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like, I'm giving you a chance right now. You got about a minute and a half. But
Mhm.
you,
Bye.
mm-mm.
No pass. What's the
At
what's the
least I'm
sound?
giving them a chance at this point.
Bye.
But you know,
Wah.
yeah, walk away, please. So much of, the hatred perpetuated in society is either um, by men, usually cis het men, usually cis het white men.
Yeah.
And it's this adapting of said culture um, by other groups to try and be closer to the privilege and closer to the entitlement. And so for me at this point, like being able to know that and being able to point that out and say this is where this is coming from has helped me very quickly turn around a lot of my biases. Um, saying, "Oh no, I only feel this way because I heard this here, and it probably came from the mouth of some hateful ass cis het white man. So I'm gonna do better." Um, because when you think about the beauty standard, when you think about the people that were being put on the covers of magazines, who was putting them there?
Mhm.
Who set the beauty standard?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I have gone through my own stages and phases of and not being aware of, it wasn't until actually until I came out as trans, and then I did this program through an organization called Mankind Project. And I went to this weekend, and I'm not going to tell you how it goes because that's one of the beauties of the weekend and the process that they walk you through. And actually, there's also a Her Kind project. And I've
Mm,
actually done a lot of work with them, and they are currently doing a lot of work uh, to shift some of their thinking in regard to the binary ways. And there's certain spaces where they have like cordoned off that this space is only for the cis man to be in, right? And then they've
mhm,
created spaces where trans men are welcome, but then they're looking at how do we shift the entire ideology around it. And I said, it's the day when it's just a humankind project and we all are experiencing this kind of stuff together, because really the weekend was quite beautiful. I learned a lot of really beautiful things about myself. But one of the things that was really remarkable in that weekend to me was that um so they run you through a series of different things right through the weekend, and you're there literally from like Friday in the evening all the way through to Sunday. You share a meal on Sunday evening. And so by Friday, like kind of late Friday evening, I think it was, they were moving us into a different room. Like we had to go through this thing and then they put us in a room, and in the room it's dark and only lit by candles, and it's dark as outside. It's night, right? So it
I
is.
don't like that.
And I'm sitting in this room lit by 3 candles. 3, like, those bigger candles that kind of look like this, right? That kind of look like my water jug. And I'm looking at the 5 guys that I'm in this weekend with. And it strikes me, and I look at the 2 guys that are part of the, like, assisting team, and I'm like, "Holy crap, I'm in this room lit by 3 candles with 7 cis white guys." And then I was like, "I gotta say something." And I don't know why I said it even out loud, because it's like, but I don't know. I was like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I am terrified of white men, like terrified of white men.
Speak that truth.
Yeah. I mean, but I didn't notice it until that moment. And here's the other thing that's kind of interesting. Maybe in another show we'll talk about this. But I had the most vivid dream. To this day, I have not forgotten this dream, but I had the most vivid dream the like days prior to going to this weekend event, right? And part of it, in this dream, what had happened is we hear this hooting and hollering, and I'm at the top of this hill, and we're at like a Village Inn or Perkins or something silly. I ended up there, and again, we'll do this story another day because we're almost at the end of our hour here. But anyway, oh, actually, no, we're not. We still have 18 minutes. But
Mhm.
anyway, so and we hear this hooting and hollering and honking and like gunshots, and I look over and there's a big truck with Confederate flags and all white men hanging out the back of the truck, screaming and hollering and shooting off their guns. And I happened to be standing with this group of men at the top of the hill. And I didn't know who these men were, but they were inviting me to come and eat with them. And 2 of them in particular, their faces were so, like, one guy was bald. I remembered that. And the other guy, and he was a person of color, I believe. The other guy um, was just really gorgeous, kind of maybe Latin, right? And so they just really struck me, these 2 men. Well, in the weekend, when I went into my weekend and I'm acknowledging that I'm terrified of white men to a room of white men lit by candles. The irony. And I'm starting to, like, let myself be free in this weekend. But anyway, we get to Sunday, and before we're going to have this meal, which again, remember I dreamt about these men inviting me to this meal at Perkins or wherever. We go into another room, and this is where they were kind of assigning us coaches, is what they said. And they were telling us, the people that were assisting, there's no furniture or anything in this room. We're all just standing in this room. And they're like, "Okay, we're gonna bring in the coaches, and we just want you to pick a coach. Don't think about it. Don't ask questions, just whatever you feel." And I kid you not, Avalisa. These men walk in, there's 6 of them, because there's 6 of us in the weekend. These 6 men walk in, and I shit you not, there's a guy, bald, who looked just like the man in my dream. And I was like, "You."
I'm gonna nope right the fuck out of this.
Yep. And I just was like, and I mean, I was so grateful that I had actually typed out this whole dream that I had, because I had sent it to my partner so that they could read it prior to my weekend. And I'm so glad that I did, because then when I said, "Oh my God, remember in the dream and the bald guy?" Well, the bald guy is now my coach, right? Well, then he is driving back here to Omaha like a week and a half later, because he went someplace else, but he's actually from LA. And he says, "Yeah, my partner and I are going to meet you if that's okay. We want to meet you because we have some time before we have to catch our flight out of Omaha." Oh my God, that would be awesome. I'd love to meet your partner. So they show up at this coffee shop, and they walk in and sit down. And I shit you not, his partner is the other guy from my dream.
Yeah.
And I said, I go, if you only knew, you know, and I just was so blown away by this fact that like, and how does this happen out of this weekend of predominantly cis white men? I end up with the two people of color and I select one to be my coach, but I had already dreamt about them. Right. And there are different things that have happened like that in my lifetime for like so many times. I feel like I have these like premonitional dreams where it's like, it's really talking and showing me a message about something that's going to happen or something that's coming up. And so it just was wild. I don't even know why. Oh, I know why I told that story because of the cis white men.
The setting. I've had many dreams like that. However, the most vivid dream I ever had, uh, I was standing in the middle of the street. I don't remember how I got there. Honestly, everything on either side of the dream has just disappeared in all of the years. But I was standing in the street, and then a school bus like turned a corner and pulled up probably like 20, 30 feet away from where I was. And I was like, oh, that's a school bus. I should probably get out of the street. And then the school bus, like, hands came out of the side of the school bus with white gloves on, like Mickey Mouse, and then reached under the bottom of the school bus. And like it started to lift up, and 2 feet came out of the bottom of the school bus. So it was 2 feet, two legs, a school bus with two arms out of the side. And I'm just like, oh, oh my God, like completely shocked. And then all of a sudden, the school bus starts running towards me, and I start running away, and a school bus just chases me down the street. And I like woke up gasping for air, so terrified. Most vivid dream I have ever had in my life, and I still like I can still visualize that school bus's hands reaching up to like, oh God, it was terrifying.
Maybe the bus was his shorts. To pull his
I
shorts up.
I don't know, but it was terrifying. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And so anytime I
Was it
think about dreams, the first thing that I think about is that school bus chased me.
was it a yellow school bus?
Yeah,
Was
that
that
yellow school bus grew
how
legs and
old were
chased
you?
me.
How old were you, do you think?
Like 26, 27.
Do you have some
Just a grown woman.
do you have some maybe there's some connection to some stories from grade school?
I looked up different meanings
Yeah.
of different interpretations of the dream and talked to a few friends that are into interpreting dreams. And like one friend was like, it's a callback to responsibility, the responsibility of going to school, doing well in school, and you were passively viewing the responsibility that you needed to do, and because you weren't active, the responsibility started chasing you so that you could stay on top of it. And I was like,
The
that
Mickey
makes
Mouse
sense.
school bus? What?
But Mickey Mouse school bus growing legs and chasing me down the street, mm-mm, mm-mm.
What kind of shoes? Was it the black was it Mickey's black shoes too?
It was Mickey's black shoes, but they were red.
Oh. You're like, "That responsibility
Terrifying.
chose the wrong way to show up."
Mm-mm. I don't like this
Moment.
dream. Never show it to me again. Find another way to tell me to to stay on top of my stuff.
Yes. Oh, that is too funny. Oh, man. Yeah, I had I had one dream once, and it was interesting, and this was actually, I believe this was shortly after I came out as trans. But I had this friend, she used to work at, one of the local TV stations, that's how I met her, and we got really close. I mean, we just became really good friends. Her name was Grace, like, just she was just an awesome human being, and she still is, and we still connect. She's since moved on to many different radio stations, and now she does medium work, and she does dream interpretation stuff. But anyway, before I really knew about all the stuff that she was doing, right, and that she interpreted dreams, I had this dream about her. And part of the dream is like I saw her from across the way and I was like, and we were in a city and I was like yelling to get her attention. And she finally sees me and she comes walking over. And all of a sudden, it's like this massive downpour and then trash everywhere. And like, there's like everything is starting to sink or something. I should look it up because I typed this dream out too. But it was like all of a sudden, this this thing emerges, and I think it might have been like a huge trash can or something, but it like emerges out of nowhere, and everything else seems to be floating away or falling away. And I get up on this trash can and I'm like yelling for her, come here. And I'm like grabbing her and I pull her up onto this trash can just before everything goes to, hell in a handbasket. But then all of a sudden it's like perfectly beautiful and clear again. And she was like, she this was before she even realized that I was trans, and because I hadn't shared that with her yet, but she interpreted the dream. I sent it to her. I typed it out. I was like, "Hey, you got to check this out. This is wild." And she was talking about how, everything that appears in a dream is actually, even people are actually a part of you, right? And so it's like, I'm not really me in your dream. There's a part of me that you connect with. That's the part that you need to pay attention to. And anyway, I'll have to dig that out and look it up. But she was saying
I
that,
have questions about that.
well, she was saying something about how the representation of like all of these things transitioning, like all of the trash going, right? And then all of a sudden everything was beautiful again. And she literally used the words like you were going through a major transformation. And I'm like, yeah, I think.
If only you knew.
Yeah. Oh, FYI. I came out as transgender. So I get it. The trash has been taken out.
hmm We are starting a new day. It is beautiful outside.
A whole new day. Little did I realize though that what was going to be happening what was going to be happening in that first few years of my transition though, because it was rough. It was a rough road.
Transition is a roller coaster, and you just ride it and hope that you don't lose your breath and die on the drops. And you hope that you don't pass out from the G's that you pull when you go around the curve or the loop de loop, and you just ride it and you enjoy it because I think that's the one thing that I thought about after I was asked, "Are you happy? Will my child be happy?" Was throwing the question back to him. Are you happy every day? Do you have days where you feel sad? Are you safe all the time? Or do you have days where you feel like you're in danger? It's such an individualistic thing, and it's dependent on so many different factors. But I think the joy of transitioning is extremely important to talk about because I think so often it gets overshadowed by our pain and our tears and all of the terrible things that we go through that people forget that we did this for a reason.
Yeah.
If this is what I'm going through now, and I willingly chose to go through all of this because that's the only choice that there is when it comes to transness, whether you are actually going to do it or whether you are going to continue to live a lie. If
Yeah.
I chose to do this, can you imagine what it was before?
Mm, right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like to have some people say to me, like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this for attention? And I'm like, what kind of attention? Because right now I'm just getting a bunch of negative attention. It's not helping.
I
I'm
had a lot
asking
of
for
people
fun to be
ask if I
free.
did this so that I could have sex with straight men and trick them.
Oh, geez.
And I was like,
Uh, yeah.
is that what I'm reduced to?
Yeah.
That's why I walk through life knowing that people like me get murdered every day just for some straight dick.
Mhm.
Get out of here.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's such a stretch, you
It's
know? It's
it's
just
it's
such
a
a stretch.
reach.
It is. It's like, how do you how do you go from there to there? You know, that's the part that I just don't understand. It's like, I don't know. And I think about, I think about just even being, like another lifetime, such a lifetime ago. I don't know if I've ever shared with you photos of myself pre-transition. Um, so I often call myself the most beautiful drag queen you've ever
Mhm.
met. And, when I think about that time, I think that if anything, at that point, I was not your typical lesbian because there was also that, unspoken truth about how all lesbians were butch, right? But it's like, no, you just don't know who a lesbian is because there are butch women who are straight as fuck. And you cannot
Yes, there
make an
are.
assumption about because I've had that happen. Like I've seen some women who I was like, "Oh, she must be a lesbian." And then all of a sudden she's talking about her husband and I'm like, "Oops, nope, not a lesbian."
Oh, look at that appearance bias. Shit. Got me.
I met this really super handsome, like very like effeminate expressing guy once and he was teaching a workshop and and I just the whole time I kept thinking, I was like, he's talking about playing with dolls in his dollhouse when he was a kid and that his parents really didn't want him to have the dollhouse, but then his grandmother actually bought him one and gave it to him. And I was like, and in my mind, like all of these thoughts are coming. I'm like, is he gay? Is he trans? I mean, is he like what? I was like, "What?" I'm so confused. And then he finally just, he admitted to being a cis straight man. And I was
Come
like,
on, strength.
"Oh," he's like and he was talking about he was saying he's like, "Everybody, I'm a metrosexual." Like was very well groomed and all these other things, but I was just like, "Oh, implicit bias," right? Like, I had all of these things going on in my head about this person trying to figure out, like, what is he? What who is he? How is he? You know? I mean, all of these different things, and I just had to laugh at myself because it was like, wow, what how easy it is for us all to compartmentalize everyone that we meet.
Yeah. But
And
congratulations to him for, being brave to come out. Normalize cis het people coming out.
yeah, exactly. Exactly, and I was just like, it was kinda like I wanted to pick my chin up off the floor when he did though, because I was like, "Wait a minute.
I feel betrayed.
You lied." No. "What is it about you cis-het white boys? You
Playing
always
with your
hiding
dollhouses and your Barbies.
always hiding the truth. What kind of secrets do you have?" That's it. That is it. I think we've struck some comedy gold tonight, huh, Felisa? They're they're all hiding their secrets, their
It's
dollhouses
so
and their
funny. I was talking to a guy who he was crushing on this guy for the longest time, and like from from bias it would say this is a heterosexual, if not bisexual, man. This man
Mm,
is interested in men,
mhm.
from the stories that he told, from the way that he held himself. And the guy said he was just so attracted to him and his openness, and the way that he thought, and it all made sense because he thought he was gay or bi or something.
Yeah.
Then he said, and then one day the guy told him that he was going out on a date. And he felt crushed because it wasn't him going on the date. And he was like, "Oh well, who is it? what does this person look like? Just in case he was buying going out with a woman. But he said he really wanted to say, what does he look like? What's his name?
Right.
And the guy pulled out a picture of of a woman, and he was like, "Oh, so do you date women often?" And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm straight. I'm a straight guy." And he said he felt so betrayed, and I was like, "That's bias."
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, how have we compartmentalized some men? Like if they have the effeminate, soft, caring feeling, we make this assumption that they're something other than straight.
Mhm.
And that's just like, again, it would be nice to be able to just normalize just feelings in general and that we all have all of them. We all have, the roller coasters that we ride and feeling all of the different feelings. And it's
It
totally valid to have them all.
it honestly feels like a lot of this new generation that is coming up is something other than straight, and I think that the table may be turning just a little bit, where there is some type of, um, disadvantage
Hmm.
to not being in the queer community in some way, in some form, because it shows that, it's the sticker that you put on. It's the "I voted" sticker. It's the I am a part of the queer community" sticker. Trust me, I am.
This is the sticker right here. It's the Protect Trans Kids Rainbow Batman sticker.
Mhm. But it's, it's this thing, and I think that, there's all of these straight kids out there who are like, "I stand with you, but I'm straight." And I've seen it play out in a lot of movies. I've heard it in a lot of different conversations. My sister just graduated high school, and so I talked to a lot of like her high school aged friends, and
Yeah.
they were afraid to tell people that they were straight, and I was like, "You
What?
had to come out?
I
Alright,
know.
2021, where are we?"
Well, did I ever tell you the story about my niece, Carly?
Yes. Ugh.
She calls me. I want to have lunch with you because I have something important to tell you. And here I'm thinking she's going to come out to me. And she's like, I don't want to be a veterinarian. I don't want to be a veterinarian anymore. I'm like, what? Like, well, that's
I thought you were
okay.
gonna tell me you were a lesbian.
What do
Damn
you
it.
want to be? She did and then come out as straight later. She did come out and say, "Well, I am straight." And I was like, "Well, that's okay too."
I
You
I
know?
love I love the feeling, the need to disclose straightness.
Yeah.
Hell yes. Let's
Yes.
go that direction more.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
I love it. Feel the discomfort we have felt for decades, for
Decades.
centuries.
Yes.
Have that uncomfortable conversation with your dad that you are straight.
When I was a lot younger, I was gonna actually create, like, a talk show environment where you flip the script and, like, they bring the person out, and they've got their family there, and they're, like, really emotional about it, and I'm straight. And then everybody else is like, "What?" Throwing
Straight in
chairs.
my household, never.
"How did this happen? You are an abomination."
It was that music it was that damn Garth Brooks, wasn't it?
You and your friends in low places.
Ugh,
Ooh, I needed that.
I did too.
I really needed that. I knew when you brought home
I knew when that boy came over that you weren't kissing in the bedroom.
You were really actually playing video games.
Was he a straight too?
Was he a straight too? He is not welcome here if he is.
He's a bad influence on you. Out here just dating women openly.
What in the world? See, that's what we need. We need more straights to come out into volatile situations so that they can really feel it and experience it. Because that is such a common thing. It's like when I try to talk to people about, like, suspend your animation a minute. Like, what would happen if you woke up and your mind and your heart told you that you were the gender that you believe that you are, but all of a sudden your body parts don't match that? And what would that be like? And we asked that on one of our survey questions
Mhm.
before our training. And it's so interesting to me, the responses to that.
Yes, the ones that you Jesus, the ones that you read, I'm like, there it is. Just a taste, because that's all it takes. It just takes a taste of them thinking outside of just where they are just a little bit
Yeah.
to be like, oh,
Yeah.
that must suck.
Right.
Because you're
Or
never gonna get it. You're never gonna fully understand it, but just that hint.
yep. I was gonna see if I could find the spreadsheet that I had from the last group, just because I wanted to read a couple of the things that came out.
Oh god, this makeup is absolutely gorgeous.
It is. Is it a new brand of makeup or
No, not at all. I just use different techniques and I found an eyeshadow look. I found two different eyeshadow looks that I really liked on Instagram. And
uh-huh.
so the one on top is one look, and then the one on the bottom with the black in the waterline, that was another look. And I was like, oh, I'm just
Mm.
gonna keep on doing this. This looks so good. I look so intense. And after the day that I had, I deserved it.
Yeah. You look
I'm
stunning. You look
I'm going to
amazing.
take pictures and I am going to post them on the internet and I'm going to say, be your own bad bitch.
Yes. Okay, so here's just a few of the responses to the question. It's a thought exercise that we put out there. And the thought exercise says it can be difficult for people who are not transgender to imagine what being transgender feels like. Imagine what it would be like if everyone told you that the gender that you've always known yourself to be, um, that you're the that you are the opposite of that now, right? So some of the responses: confused, maybe shameful, though they shouldn't have to feel this way. Very anxious. It would make me very anxious. It would be disorienting and confusing to try to understand why people didn't believe me. I would get tired of trying to figure out how to explain and in what context it would be worth the energy. I would try to outwardly project my real gender, perhaps more strongly than I would if no one was disbelieving me, in an attempt to get people to stop asking or not believing me. If I woke up one day with a body that's associated with a different gender, I would work toward becoming the gender I associated with. I would act as a woman where I felt I belonged and would find a different doctor and probably not talk to those friends and family until they accepted me for who I am. Confused and probably scared, someone wrote. That would be very difficult, even scary. I would feel disconnected, likely depressed. It would erase me even more. We need affirmation. Okay, so this is someone who must have been this is one of our older groups, I think. Yeah, this was from October. So this is really hard. I would probably conform to the new gender norms while I tried to figure out what to do about this weird situation. That's an interesting response right there. I mean, I definitely think it could be confusing and really invalidating. This is really hard to imagine. I already struggle enough with my self-esteem and self-identity without having to question my gender. I probably would not handle it very well. Yeah, it's just interesting, very interesting. We have 2 people watching. I wonder who those 2 people are.
Hello, hello.
Are you gonna speak to us frankly tonight, or are you just gonna sit like a fly on the wall?
Just here to listen if that's what you're into. If you're into just listening,
Yes, just
I'm
listen.
into it. After that laugh that I had,
I needed that so bad. I was
I
feeling
did
really,
too.
really heavy earlier tonight, and I think you were talking about it too, just not feeling well and having cramps and
I was cramping so bad. I thought that I was, hi, Lori. I thought that I was dying. I thought that I was dying.
yeah,
Like I was trying to like wash my hair and my hair has gotten longer. So it's a lot of this.
yeah.
And that having to sit up straight when you're cramping, I was just like bent over and I couldn't do anything. At one point, I was just kneeling on the floor and I was like, is this gas? Is this like bad poop? Like, what's going and nothing was happening. And I was like, not this again.
Yeah.
Not my body thinking that there's a womb in there somewhere and you're trying to squeeze the shit out of it. What's happening? I don't like this. So from like 12 to 5, I was just completely laid out in the bed, not moving, with my husband's heating pack on my stomach because I had no idea where it was. It felt like right below my belly button, there was a black hole and it was trying to pull everything into it as forcefully and as aggressively as possible. But
Mm.
it couldn't get it. It couldn't get it. So it was just constantly pulling. And then I'd get 90 seconds where I'd be able to breathe and relax and then go straight back into it. I was like,
Mm.
this is bullshit.
Uh, yes. As a former person who has experienced cramping, I understand. And that is not something I would want to relive.
I don't want to go through it ever again.
Yeah, I did not wanna go through it ever again, but yet I went through it for many, many years.
And to think that there are so many cis women who base womanhood on that one thing.
I know, I know.
That's the experience. That's what you want to boil womanhood down to.
Yeah, and why? I mean, yeah, it's like the worst. And that's one of the things that I also share a lot when we do our workshops is that, there was such a disconnect between me and my body and like just a complete disconnect and not really even realizing until I had the experience of my chest being what it is now, not even realizing how deep that divide was because it was just what I had always experienced, right? And until I had this experience, it was like, oh, that's what dysphoria is. I
Mhm.
get it now, right?
There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, when I got my boobs done, like, I felt the dysphoria. I have felt the dysphoria my entire life, and it just felt wrong. It felt like every time I looked in the mirror, my body was lying to me. Every time I went to the bathroom, my body was lying to me, and so it was something that I felt very often, and I knew exactly where to place a lot of that hatred.
Yeah.
Um, but after I got my breast done, I was like, "Oh, this feels so much better. This I can deal with. I can make it through the day with these. Let me show them off." It felt so good to be able to have that identifier,
Yeah.
um, to feel, and not every woman has boobs, but like to be able to feel that connection to other women that walk down the street. Whereas before, I couldn't place anything specifically, but having boobs made me feel like I was part of the club, even though I had always been part of the club. But like at that moment, it was like, "Whew, okay,
Well,
I
there's
feel a
that
little more at home."
yeah, there's that sense of internal validation, too.
Mhm.
That is so strong, and that I think that that is what it is really difficult for cis folks to even really get that, right? Because it's like, I don't know, until you have appendicitis, you don't know what it feels like to have appendicitis. And then when you do feel and when you do have it, it's like, you don't wanna ever feel that again, and thank goodness once they take it out, you won't, but it's just like, I don't know. I guess that's a good way to relay it in a certain sense. It's like, how many of you've had a urinary tract infection? How many of you had, uh, passed a kidney stone, right?
How many
Like,
of you bumped your baby toe on the corner of the bed? Do you
there
wanna
you
do that again?
Mhm. Yeah,
And every time it kills you. You feel like you have lost your foot.
yeah. And even just the slightest bump in just the right way. And then you're apologizing to the bed too.
Mm, no, that's the only one I won't apologize to. I'm ready to fight the bed, not you.
It's always the bed's fault. "How did you get there?"
Ugh, I
"Why
remember
do you
one
have to
time I
get in
just
my way?"
laid on the floor and held my toe,
Oh,
and, like, it was that searing pain where you can't really feel anything because it's just so painful, and I
yeah,
kept trying to feel if my toe was there. It
yeah.
felt like it was gone. It felt like I knocked it straight off and it was sitting in the middle of the room somewhere.
Oh, I know that feeling. I've had that happen too.
Ugh.
Or it's like I'll see something and I know I am gonna hit that with my toe. And then sure as shit, I will. And I'm like, "Why
Mhm.
didn't I walk around further? Why didn't I choose a different path?" Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, "Gotta be careful to avoid this," and then you hit it and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
What happened?"
Obviously, I wasn't careful enough. All right. Well, listen, for those of you who have tuned in and out again, and then back in and then out again, we certainly appreciate you joining us this evening. We thought we would have a casual conversation to introduce our new day and time. We are now going to do, frankly speaking, on Tuesday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. every other Tuesday. And next week, Tuesday, I will do an episode of Speaking of Happy. So that will be some excitement. I'm trying to decide who I'm going to invite on to the show with me to have a conversation for next week. But Avalisa and I will be back in 2 weeks with an all new episode of Frankly Speaking, and hopefully some fun guests.
Hopefully. We will see you then. Thank you for being
Yes.
here. We appreciate you popping in, popping out, and popping back in. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
And Lori to Lori. Thank you for saying hello, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. I love you. I miss you.
And thank you for listening. All right, that's it. We'll see you next time. Have a great evening.